Hey everybody. Welcome to Seager Storytime, episode 3. I'm Elliott, this is Mattson, and this is Taze.
We are honored to be here with David Coors. David Coors. Sorry. Oh, man. But do you mind introducing yourself to our guests?
Yeah, certainly. Well, welcome, guys, and it's great to be here. David Coors. I'm a vice president here at the brewery and also fifth generation of the Coors family, so thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, stoked to have you.
Yeah, stoked to have you for sure. And just to address the elephant in the room, we are not at a campfire right now. We are at an exclusive bar at the Coors Brewing facility in Golden, Colorado. Obviously, due to the fires in California and Colorado, we wanted to respect that and stoked to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are absolutely super happy to be here. And before we do anything, can we get a quick tour of the brewery?
I think we can arrange that.
Sweet.
But to get there, we're going to have to do a little special trick
how do you do
here
it?
at the brewery. All right, we're going to cheers, and you'll magically appear.
Here we go.
So here we are in the germination room where we're growing the barley a little bit for it to sprout, get some nutrients in it before it goes into the kiln. On to the next brew house where we have over 3,500 barrel brew kettles. This is where beer is made, and then we ship it off to the fermentation tanks, which we're going to go visit next. So on to the next. So here we are in a fermentation cellar. This is where we take wort from the brew kettles that we just saw, add yeast to it, make alcohol, and then it's off to packaging and ready to be consumed. So let's head back to the bar and have a couple.
Yeah. That was weird.
That was awesome.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's jump into the questions. Can you kind of explain what you do here, I guess? I mean, I'm curious. Every day.
Absolutely. Well, recently I started up a new a position where I'm starting to explore some new territories for our business to venture into, including cannabis, wine, and spirits. But as you guys know, my true favorite beer is this one right in front of us, and glad you guys are here and enjoying it with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was the first beer that Coors ever came out with, yeah? Is that right?
This was the
Yeah.
beer from 1873. The brewery was founded back then by my great-great-grandfather, Adolph Coors, and that's actually 3 years before Colorado was even a state.
Dang.
Which is crazy. Golden was also the capital of Colorado for
What?
a while
I did not know.
before it moved to Denver.
What was the move? Why did they do that?
It's a really good question. We have to get
Well, we'll write it up.
Yeah.
It says why, what happened.
So what does the term, or I guess the beer banquet, mean to the brand of Coors? Like, what's the difference between that and Coors Light? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah, it's funny. This beer's been called kind of a number of different things. It's always been Coors, right? Actually, it was Schuler Coors at first, and Adolph got into the partnership with another businessman, Jacob Schuler.
Okay.
So it was Schuler Coors for a few years before Adolph bought out Mr. Schuler. And then it's been called Coors, Coors Original, Coors Banquet. It's had a couple different names over the years, and where Banquet stems from is actually a couple different stories. So back in the day, this was a mining town, right? Golden was part of the gold rush in Colorado, and at the end of a long week of mining, these folks in the hills chipping away at rocks, they'd come down and they'd want to enjoy themselves with some cold beer. And those parties, what we'd call parties today, were called banquets. And so this was the beer at their post-mining week banquets that they would enjoy. The other one is that the Coors family was hosting a party, and again, back then, usually at a party, I don't know what they would serve, probably wine, champagne, whiskey,
Cheese.
who knows, cheese. And someone was at one of the family parties back in the day and asked my great-great-grandmother probably at the time and said, well, why are you serving beer at a party? She said, well, this beer is only fine enough for a banquet. And so it was kind of a statement of quality that they put on the brand. So it's kind of come and gone over the years, but it's certainly here to stay and a name that we're proud of.
Yeah. It has so many nicknames too. I was just thinking when you said it has multiple names, like Colorado Kool-Aid,
Yellow
Bellies,
Belly.
Yellow Jackets, I heard recently.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Yeah,
Yellowstone.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different names that it has, which is cool. Like
Speaking-
sticks to music and
Speaking of like Yellowstone, like I noticed through the seasons, like the first season was Budweiser, and then the second season was Coors. Like, did you just step in there and like, nah, it can't be Budweiser, it's got to be Coors, because that show is pretty cool.
I can't confirm or deny how that went down.
Okay, good to know. Which actually leads me into a question I've been wanting to ask. I've seen a bunch of Budweiser commercials that kind of attack Coors. How did, personally to you, because you're David Coors, like how does that feel when you like turn on the TV or watch the Super Bowl and then Budweiser just like knocks Coors? How does that feel? What's it like?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I sit on the couch watching the Super Bowl with some friends and family, and you know, that first ad launches, and it's like a gut punch.
Yeah.
I can't speak to their tactics or reasoning behind it, and
Sure.
it's one of those things that, you know, the brewing network is actually quite friendly, especially as you talk about brewers. I mean, educational sharing, how do we make the best beer? We have an old library here on the brewery property that back in the day, folks from any of the major breweries were coming in here, and I'm talking in the 50s, 60s, were coming in here to learn, and we would go to their breweries to learn. And so there's not as much, you know, fighting at the brewer level, and especially as we talk about craft beers as well. A lot of the craft breweries in Colorado are ex-employees, or past employees of Coors, or have been businesses that our brewers have gone and helped them out. They've lent them equipment, they've given them their time and advice, and
cool.
So it's actually like a really cool community. But then when you get into whether it's the sales or marketing side, you know, everyone's competitive and want their attention, and that was a tactic they chose. And you know, it is what it is, but it's but yeah.
Do you want to use that tactic back, or
Instigating over here. It'll be us on camera. Yeah.
No, didn't someone say when they go low, we go high? But
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Do they have to warn you before they put an ad like that?
Like
or is it
slander or something?
You see it when we see it.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't know it was coming. It was
Dang.
interesting because they usually pre-release commercials going into the Super Bowl, and they didn't this year. So we knew something was coming. We weren't sure what.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Interesting. I do want to dive into like the family tree kind of and how that all, I guess, how you came about technically. Like, who is Adolf Coors to you? Is he your great grandpa, or is he your great uncle, or?
He's my great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
And he was actually an immigrant from Germany. So back in the mid to late 1800s, left his family and immigrated, landed in Baltimore, and worked his way across the U.S. and doing a number of jobs. First, he had to pay off his wages of getting here because he didn't have the money to pay for it. So he paid it off once he landed, and then he had been a brewing apprentice as a teenager back in Germany back then, and we're talking probably 50 or 60. Brewing apprentice, so knew a little bit about beer, and then there was a brewery actually in Illinois that he stopped and worked at for a couple of years, and the folklore goes that he was asked by the owner of the brewery to marry his daughter, and you know, I was like, nope, see you later, I'm moving west. So he didn't want to get stuck in Illinois. And back in that day as well, everything about beer was about water. A big portion of beer's quality was water. Obviously, the ingredients played a huge role, but the biggest ingredient being water. And there weren't filtration techniques. There weren't, you know, technologies knowing, you know, you can add some salts or other minerals to get water to be the way you want it to be. So he landed in Golden, Colorado, and saw this natural spring water and said, wow, this would make really good beer. And so he converted an old tannery building that was on site here into a brewery with his partner, and kind of that's how it all came about. But worked his way on his own and left his family, and it's a great immigrant story.
Yeah, that's some crazy history. I mean,
Yeah.
to like still be a brand that's huge and have the history behind it, it's freaking
It's
awesome.
crazy.
Yeah. And if you see the size of this place now, from what he probably started with, like, who knows what he started with on that river. Now it's just massive.
Not in their
Goes
wildest
on 30
years.
miles.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even my great uncle Bill, who we can talk about, who's
Yeah,
a
we heard about
legend
him.
in the industry, is, you know, I think it was either Uncle Bill or his dad, Adolf Jr., was like, we're never gonna make more than 200,000 barrels. Like, we can't control quality, we can't control the growth, we're never gonna do that. And for those guys, if they could see what it's become, they'd be blown away.
And so that has always been the backbone, then controlling the quality and making sure it has that same banquet taste every time?
Yeah, that's what I love about this brand is that it's tried and true to its values and values that have been ingrained over the generations. And you know, my dad's famous saying is that you won't brew this outside of Golden unless it's over my dead body. And you know, one day that unfortunately will be reality when he passes on, but then it will be the same for my brother and I. That it won't be
So
over
every
ours.
single Coors is made in this facility in Golden, Colorado.
Every single Coors banquet comes
Coors
out
Banquet.
of here.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And it
uh,
uses that stream of water.
Not the stream. So actually, the brewery sits on a large underground aquifer,
Okay.
and so yeah, people will come up to the brewery and see that the river running through, and they say, oh, that's where you get your water. And no, it's we have a watershed near Berthoud Pass, which is a pass you take to get to Winter Park Ski Resort. That's kind of the channel where it trickles down through bedrock layer and works its way down to this aquifer, and it's a huge source. Without that aquifer, we wouldn't be able to sustain the volume that we have.
I was gonna say.
No, and one thing I love about the brewery, right, speaking of water, is that it's a really efficient brewery from a water use perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So we use about 2.5 barrels of water per barrel of beer that we brew, and that is extremely low from an industry perspective. I mean, you know, on average, I don't know the exact numbers, but probably between 8 to 15 barrels of water per barrel of beer. So fractionally less, which means less waste of water. And in Colorado, I mean, it's a dry climate and everything, and water is a precious resource. A lot of our water, the snow melt that comes our way, ends up even out in your guys' neck of the woods out in California. So we're very precious about the water, and then we're also zero waste to landfill. So for one of the largest breweries in the world, we're pretty proud of the fact that we don't send any waste to landfill as well.
So it sounds like you guys are focusing on sustainability. Is there anything else you guys are doing around here that I guess focuses on that?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the best accomplishments that I'm most proud of is my great uncle Bill, who I mentioned before, who invented the aluminum can.
That everyone uses?
That everyone uses.
Jeez.
And it's a crazy, wild story. So he was an engineer at college and learned about the valuable properties of aluminum. It's very flexible, 98% recyclable, all these elements. And we came to the brewery. We were using 3-piece tin cans, so it'd have a body, it'd have a top and a bottom.
Yeah.
And
Like a soup can, kind of, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can have all kinds of quality issues from leakage, rusting, you know, it certainly affect the quality of the beer. And so he invented the 2-piece aluminum can, and he also didn't want to patent it because he wanted people to use it to help spark the recycling revolution.
Jeez, that's as
So,
poor as it gets.
Yeah, he said,
old
let's
Bill.
get this thing, you know, recycle this product. That's 2-piece aluminum can, recycle it, and it'll work. No one would recycle. He was seeing cans on the side of the road. He said, all right, we'll pay you for that for those used cans, and we'll recycle them ourselves. And so that was the start of deposit recycling.
Did they work with the government on, because I always thought that as like a government sort of agency, I guess, that encouraged recycling. So did that transition, I guess, to everyone using it, or was they just would come to learn how you guys did it? And
No, I think it was
that way.
it was just the brewery doing it at first, and I think governments have adopted it over the years. I mean, this was again back in the late 50s, early 60s, and yeah, it's an awesome accomplishment. So that's and you see the craft industry moving to a bunch of cans as well. It's a great vessel. I mean, you can't beat the stubby bottle,
it's
but
classic.
and glass, it has great recyclable
Totally.
elements to it, but can is the most recyclable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Coca-Cola. I mean, every single freaking
Everything.
company in the world that sells a
Yeah.
beverage
I was just
uses
thinking
that.
about
So
that.
like,
It's everywhere.
He invented something that is revolutionary for the whole entire like world. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I mean,
sounds like a crazy dude, like a really eccentric guy. Like, what was it like? Were you like grew up with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he passed away 2 years ago at the age of 102.
Jeez.
Yeah.
was
That's
he
crazy.
like was he like full of like was he the man when you walked in the room? Everyone was just like, "Whoa, there's Uncle Bill," or what? Or was he kind of low key? What was that?
No, I mean, he was a very intelligent man. I mean, he had so many accomplishments. He designed a lot of this brewery, obviously with teams of engineers and other talented folks. But we have one of the largest malting facilities in North America that he helped design here at the property, and he was industry renowned. I mean, well respected, and I mean, he could taste beer up until the end, and we would taste beer all the time. Once a month, there's a quality panel where the family would get together with some of the key quality folks at the brewery, and we'd taste beer.
Sounds fun.
He could pick out, you know, beer from different breweries if it was different brands. I mean, he knows his beer as good as any. And even I spoke with him, you know, a couple months before his passing, and we were talking to him about the brewery and everything, and he still wanted to know technical questions.
Wow,
You know,
that's
we
crazy.
got the big project outside that we're working on, and we were talking to him about that, and he was asking about electrostatically grounding the
What?
fermenters so that it doesn't affect the yeast.
That's
No
insane.
102 years old.
So he was just born and raised, like, that's all he thought about was just the brewery tours and how to just push it forward.
Yeah, he grew up in a house that would have been not far from underneath where we're sitting.
Wow.
But, the house still exists. It's moved about 150 yards east of where we're sitting today. But
Oh, really?
yeah,
Is it, like, do people use that house still, or is it kind of more of like a museum style?
no, I mean it's set up still all original and everything, and the family uses it on occasions for holidays and
How
whatnot.
does that feel? There's so much heritage there. I can't imagine that.
It's a, you know, it's a blessing, right?
Yeah.
To be a part of it it's
Totally.
a blessing. It's also I take it on as a responsibility and
For sure.
to carry on. You talk about shoes to fill. You can't fill those
Yeah,
shoes, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, how was that growing up? I mean, on that note, I guess, like, did you feel that pressure right off the bat, or were you kind of just doing your own thing, or did you always know you wanted to work at the brewery here?
yeah, well, I mean, a couple of thoughts there. One was, I mean, traditional German family. It was strict, and not my upbringing necessarily, but the generations before me. I mean, they were in three-piece suits on Sunday dinner, kind of a
Wow,
thing, and
that's sick, though.
kids wouldn't
Cigars.
talk unless spoken to, you know. And,
Yeah.
very regimented, very disciplined, and so there's certainly a lot of that is carried over. But my upbringing was, we have this business. If you want to work for it, great, but you're not forced to. We're not going to make you do it. We want you to do what you want to do. The only
cool.
rule that we had was you have to work somewhere else for 2 years before you work at the brewery.
What was the reason
Being other
there?
experience or
Other experience to avoid nepotism.
Yeah. Awesome.
Be the other employees
really cool.
know that the family's qualified for whatever position they enter the business into.
Jeez. Very
And
smart.
You gotta start at the bottom and work your way up.
So from getting to know you, you seem like a super modest and nice, down-home kind of guy. Having your position in the company and your last name being Coors, you come into work every day. How is that relationship with you and your employees? It's got to be interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't look at it as our names on the building, so we have certain rights or whatnot. We're a family. It's a community here, and we've got an executive team above me even, right, that put in a ton of work. And there are so many people that make this place hum at every level, and it's one of those things that if we don't have a environment or a community that's kind of family oriented, then I think we'd be doing a disservice. So
Totally.
Yeah.
yeah.
How many employees actually work in Golden? Do you know? Just brewery.
Yeah, so on this property, we actually, the brewery spans the valley almost. Like, we're at the brewery complex. We have a can manufacturing plant down valley. We have a glass plant, and it stretches about 2.5 miles. And I would say throughout the valley, there's probably these days 12 to 1,400 employees,
Wow.
depending on the season.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's heavy.
And that's without corporate, or that includes corporate, or
No, that's without corporate. Yeah.
Wow.
Corporate's in Chicago, between Chicago and Milwaukee. So I don't know if we want to get into the conglomerate side of things, but
Personally,
but we
Oh my
can.
God.
You know, it's interesting
Damn star.
for us, like, when we first started Seager, I was like, oh, I wonder what the day is when I see a random dude wearing a Seager shirt. That's going to be so crazy to me. But, like, Coors has been huge forever. So,
Yeah.
like, when you're at a bar or something and someone orders a Coors that you don't really know, are you like,
I'll just throw a
That's a
wink.
good question.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'd throw a wink.
you're like, oh, no. Or, like, when a bartender checks your ID, like, Coors, like, what do you want?
Yeah, no, it's gratifying when you see someone choose a brand that you put a lot of love, passion, energy into it. You guys probably know this too. If you
Yeah,
see
sure.
some random person wearing a Seager shirt or a hat, you've got to be stoked, right? It's
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that you strive for, and it's people choosing that, and they like it, whether it's the quality of the product, the taste of the product, what the brand stands for, or where you are in part of town or country or whatnot. So that's like, it's a very gratifying kind of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another thing to note is every time we see someone in a bar wearing a Seager shirt, we buy them a Coors.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so it goes hand in hand right there.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll do the same.
And that goes out to everyone listening. If we see you, you get a beer.
100%.
How did you first come about like knowing what Seager was, or when did you first see Seager?
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that it was on Instagram, and it was a friend that saw one of your guys' posts with a Coors can or bottle in it, and I was like, check this out, and so I started following you guys and loved kind of just the natural representation that you guys had, and enjoying our product, and it didn't look like, and it wasn't like planned product placement. It seemed natural and was awesome. So I didn't even know we had a formal, or if we have a formal relationship. I don't know if you want to put that in there.
It's like, oh, I hope so.
The funny thing is, which I've told you before, is that it is natural. And just like I was saying, like the first trip we ever went on as a company, we were in Mammoth, and we went, I'm pretty sure we were all 21 at that point.
Yeah, we were of age.
Yeah.
No,
like we
were
had just
of
turned
age.
21. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
we just turned 21, and we go to a liquor store and pick up Coors Banquet and drink it. And ever since that moment, we pretty much only drink Coors Banquet.
Yeah.
It's just stuck to like us and the brand, and has just been a part of Seager. So
And it's
it is
crazy to
natural.
see.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see the reaction of people like posting photos with Coors and Seager. Like it goes hand in hand nowadays.
Yeah.
It's weird.
That's
like it's awesome and it's cool and it's definitely working. And it's like when, like Case was saying, our first trip, we didn't want any other brand because Banquet just fit our brand the perfect way. So yeah.
No, I love the value systems that we both kind of share, and I just think it's when there's a natural connection and it works, then it's more rich than going out and paying for placements and whatnot. It's like this is one of those that means a lot to us.
Yeah, and we look up to it obviously because it's a heritage brand.
Yeah.
And the name Coors stands out to us, and it's aesthetic and looks good. But at the end of the day, like we are trying to grow Seager as a heritage brand, and we look at the long term, not like short term gains, and that's pretty much what Coors did. So
Yeah.
I think sticks to the brand pretty well.
So can I flip the mic over to you guys and
Yeah.
ask you questions about Seager?
Yeah.
'Cause I'd love
shoot.
to know a little bit about the stories that don't get out there behind the brand and how it all came about.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
what,
you
do you
got?
want, what do you want to hear?
I didn't plan my questions, so let's dive right in. So you guys are all friends from growing up, right? So how did the idea come about? Were you sitting around drinking beers and said, let's do this brand?
It's pretty much exactly how it
Yeah.
started. Yeah, I mean, we were drinking and we realized there wasn't a brand that had a Western and a surf feel to it, an outdoor feel. There obviously is outdoor, and there's obviously surf, and there's obviously whatever else, but we wanted to wear flannels and cowboy hats at the beach and not be corny, which is definitely corny, but we wanted to figure out a way to make it not corny, and it maybe never will be that way, but we're trying. So that's kind of the first step. And then we started making shirts and hats for our friends. Like I think we each put in like $200, and we sold those shirts. And then the profit that we made from that, we sold more shirts.
Recycled it,
Yeah.
Slow and easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that honestly the trickiest part for it at that point, like the inception time before we even had a first product, was this weird idea of trying to connect polar opposite people. Like we all have family. I'm sure everyone has family in different pockets, whether it's like the South, but then you live in California, and so you see how different those cultures kind of create the people who grow up there based on the activities and everything there. And we were trying to bring those together, like Mattson's saying, like wearing a cowboy hat and then cruising down to like Sando or cruising the beach felt like, before we were doing it just felt like taboo. You just couldn't do it. And so we didn't really have money or too much of a game plan to start. It's just a drunk idea. But it was just an idea on, I guess, the values that you were talking about of trying to encourage people, especially our age. Like our generation is known for being on their phone, being kind of complacent, like not good stereotypes, I guess, for our age. And so we wanted to push more of a traditional sort of mindset. And that's where the heritage brand comes in, of trying to push like these values that we want to encourage our friends and even ourselves to like create these trips that make us better men, you know, to then create other I guess inspire other people to do the same thing. And we with was that 200 with that much money, like we're like, how do we do that? Let's make one hat and then see where it goes. And so it's kind of just been steamrolling, and that I guess the values that are built at the core of it allowed for the content side to kind of come in so hard and tell that story that the product couldn't at first. And I think that's what kind of led us to Coors and led us to where we're at right now at this beautiful bar.
Yeah,
You know?
well said.
Crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's well said.
No,
Yeah,
I
but
love the approach.
when it all comes down to it, when you're starting a brand and you are thinking of the long term and trying to make a heritage brand, there's no really way to go about it other than just going as slow as possible and being committed to keeping it going.
Yeah.
So,
Staying core.
yeah, that's it.
That's I mean, I've got the blessings of 5 generations to build that up, but if it was never the plan for it to be this multinational brand, right? It was just, this was the family's livelihood and made good beer. And honestly, Adolf was so strict on quality. He lived on property, walked the brewery floor on the weekends, every day of the week. And if something was out of place, something was wrong, something didn't taste right, you knew. Think of an old, chiseled German, like
Just on it.
Yeah.
Chiseled? Was it jacked?
Yeah, was he jacked?
He looks pretty svelte in the pictures, but he wasn't worried about a 6-pack or packs. He was just a hard ass, right? And so I think those sticking to your values and it does pay off in the long run, but there's gonna be challenging times think of Banquet when Coors Light came on the scene, right? It just went on a tear, and Banquet was losing volume, and sales team was trying to drop price, trying to maintain the volume of the brand, and it just continued to kind of taper off. And it's like, nope, you know what? We're not going to touch the brand. We're going to let it do what it does. And even over the last, I'd say maybe 10 years, the topic can come up where should we brew Banquet somewhere else to save some transportation costs or whatnot. And like I said, my dad Pete was like, no, we're not going to brew this somewhere else. And we could save, I think the number, well, anyway, it's probably tens of millions of dollars of that we could save brewing this elsewhere. But I guarantee you it just wouldn't taste the same as it does out of this brewery. This equipment was designed for this beer.
And the brand integrity. I'm sure everyone who works here knows, like, they take pride in that the beer comes from here and they're working on it.
Yeah,
Hell, I take pride in that.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm close to this
Shows
place.
loyalty. For
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well,
So weird.
another thing that I didn't mention earlier was like big thing from a value-based system is Code of the West, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is true across kind of the western part of the U.S. And I usually carry the card in my wallet that's got the 10 codes of the West,
sick.
but it's like one of those. I wish I could rattle them off. I need to memorize them. But it's just a value-based system, right?
Yeah.
Of like you take care of your neighbor. If you think about it, if you were living in the Western times, would you, if someone's horse was needing water, you'd go grab it some hay and fill up the water pail for the horse, or like I'm making stuff up, right? But it's just those value systems and principles that I think are really key to how you go about your business. And
Are they on the bottle caps? Like, get your hands dirty?
No, that's a great idea to put the
codes.
the code of the
Yeah.
West on the bottle caps.
You can pay me later.
You got it.
Well, speaking of, brand partnerships, what are the possibilities of a Seager beer?
Seager beer. Sounds good to me. I don't know. There's collaborate. Like St. Archer did a beer with Ruka.
There we go.
Yeah,
See, that's what you're.
yeah.
Seager Coors
There you
beer.
go.
Come on.
We've been eyeing that partnership pretty much since before we started it. Just
True.
thinking about like how we could lay that out or how to even pitch it to somebody or
And this is our pitch.
talk about it. Yeah.
On camera.
I told the brand team, I was like, all right, I'll give you a recap on how things
Well, let's talk about surfing a little bit.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
Did you?
Because-
Okay, I lived in Manly Beach for a little bit.
That's exactly where I live, South Stain.
Really?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to move to Australia and launch our business down there. And, what a both time of life. I just gotten married to my wife, Molly. We didn't have kids. She had a good career going in Chicago. and we got the opportunity to move down to Australia. And she was hesitant, right? She's like, I've got my career path is going well. Mine was as well at our corporate office in Chicago. And it was one of those where, do we go? And it's amazing. You look back and go, why did I even flinch for a second?
Yeah.
You got to think about this stuff. And so she went in to tell her boss that she was moving, and she works in the financial industry, and her boss was like, well, we've got an office in Sydney, like, why don't you try to get a job there? So like personal sorted, okay, we're good. Like, you know, we can keep the wife happy and she keep her career cranking.
Yeah.
And we moved to Sydney and found a place on Manly Beach.
Awesome.
And had never surfed before. I'd always dreamed about it. I boogie boarded on like family vacations and swam in the ocean and stuff, but never surfed. But I always dreamed, I don't know, as a kid from Colorado, why did I fall in love with surfing? I don't know why, but I did.
Yeah.
And so I got there and I literally would watch YouTube video after video, like paddling lessons, like how do you carve, how do you stand up, all this kind of stuff. And I bought this 6'10" foamy. It was my first board, and I actually created an Instagram account for it. It was called Blue Belva, I think.
Is it still around?
I never posted a picture of it. I think we'll have to look that up.
That's awesome.
But so Belva was my first board, and then I got a Firewire fish, like a giant 3-inch thick fish that was awesome, and then worked my way down to shortboards and made a great group of friends. It was a mix of Americans, some Brits, and some Aussies, and
Nice.
it was the crew, right? And it was all about the ritual of going for the search and getting up before sunrise and trying to find the right break. And I'll never forget my first. You know, I was surfing like small stuff at just right on Manly Beach, and then I'd been surfing for 6 months, and these guys were like, "Hey, there's this big swell. It's a southerly. Let's go up to DY. It's a point break, and it's an awesome right-hander, and big swells, southerly swells hit it just right." And I was like, "Yeah, well, that sounds great. No problem." Here I am on the Firewire, like big board. I can't duck dive a thing, and I finally make it out past the break, and we're sitting around, and I'm not going to catch a wave. These waves are. I think it was a 6 to 8 foot swell, and sure enough, I was way out past the lineup, and this bomb set comes in, and I look at my friend, and he starts scratching out, and I'm like scratching, and boom, right on the head. Like,
oh
this
my
wave just takes me out.
Just wrecked you.
And I'd never experienced that feeling. Like, it's the scariest thing for the first
Such a
time.
terrifying feeling.
It always
It
is.
never gets, it never gets better.
It's always normal.
And I look at my buddy Matt Hamill, and I'm like, what do I do now? And he smiles at me and keeps paddling out, and here comes wave number 2.
That's good
Crazy. And but after that, then a 3-foot wave didn't seem big, and that's like the progression of surfing, right? You go surf bigger stuff, and then the stuff that used to be big doesn't.
Exactly.
So fell in love with it. Now do an annual trip to Fiji with some pals, and
Nice.
that's the one thing that Colorado doesn't have is a beach, and it kills me. But
Could have a wave pool.
We could get there.
we need a yeah.
You gotta invite us to Fiji next time.
Yes, you got it. One thing I love like about the beer business, I'm not doing my job serving you.
How dare you?
You're supposed to slide it over.
Sorry, I forgot. Can I have a beer, please? Thank you, bartender.
But one thing I love about the beer business, and it's probably similar with apparel, right, is like you see parts of towns and communities that you wouldn't see. Like if you go to Sydney as a tourist, you're going to see the tourist stuff. You go there and you launch a beer brand, you start to see neighborhoods, and you start to see, you know, I never found the Crocodile Dundee bar that I really wanted the Outback experience. But no, I mean, you get to know the people, and the Australian culture is awesome. You walk up to the bar and you're standing in line to order your beer, and they just strike up a conversation. Like, hey, and you open your mouth as an American, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're American, and next thing you know, you're having beers at their table like 2 minutes later, and it was such a cool way to learn a country, a community, a culture. At beer is certainly something that breaks down those barriers. And
How old were you?
I was in my mid-30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet any like pro surfers from Australia, or go to any tours, or?
God, I mean, one of the best days of my life was surfing with Joel Parko.
There we go.
Joel Parkinson. Yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
like, Yeah, it was, so went to his local break, his cousin or nephew was surfing there. I mean, who was the other pro surfer anyway? Was out there just messing around. And I'm like all nervous and I'm getting my board wax and strapping my leash on, and he just grabs his board and runs out to the surf. Like doesn't have, a leg rope or anything, and is just throwing airs, and I was just blown away. It's crazy. I am by no means a great surfer, but I love it. I love the punishment, and I love the ocean. So
It's awesome. That's all that really matters, really. Just getting after it.
Yeah, but I did want to get into like the future of Coors or Molson Coors as a whole, other than Seager Coors, of course. But just kind of like what next gen means as a whole.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to head up a part of our business that's all about kind of what's the next generation of products for our company, right? So certainly we're passionate and very focused on the beer and the beer portfolio that we have, but it's the consumers are changing rapidly, and what are some of those trends that we want to tap into? So some of the areas that we're looking into is cannabis, wine, and spirits, and on the cannabis front, from a beverage perspective, we certainly have a strict regulatory environment in this country, and we're abiding to that. So we're trying to navigate and how to prepare for how we want to participate in that space.
Yeah.
And then on the wine side, we've launched a wine brand called Movo. That's a small can with some wine spritzer effectively. And then on the spirit side, we're exploring some entries into that area as well. So it's kind of fun where I get to dabble with the core from a beer perspective, and then start to see where we want to take things going forward.
Sick.
That's cool.
Because I feel like the cannabis side of things is like legally hard to navigate, but you can't not plan for it. So it's something that you have to see is the future, but it's hard to navigate through it.
Yeah, I mean, we think our capabilities are, beverage expertise of packaging, a product that is consistent, and we package millions of bottles of Coors Banquet, for instance, every so often. Gosh, how many? Probably a million bottles a day. I don't even know. And so how do we take those capabilities and leverage them into other territories? And we're in the fuzzy front end of things, and it's obviously it was like a really my family's traditional, right? And certainly it's a big decision to even consider going into kind of some of these new territories. I look at it back as prohibition, right? Beer wasn't so popular back in the early 1900s, and alcohol wasn't, and cannabis certainly has some of those issues. So we want to do it in a very responsible way, do it obviously abiding by all the regulations that are out there, and do it in a way that it's a social beverage that you can enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Would you like another beer?
Yeah. There we go.
I love being bartender.
I would actually love one too.
Thank you so much.
You got it. It's like, if I could give you guys any, word of advice or whatnot for what it's worth, is like, enjoy this time, right? You're in this unique stage of starting up a business, unique stage of life where you're young, you can bounce around, you can pick up and take an RV to Golden, Colorado to go shoot a video, and it is a precious moment in time that you just got to capture. Life is full of different stages, and enjoy each one because you'll be rewarded at each one, but have a blast and make the choices that are right for the business in the long run, and take the time. And it's not always going to be easy, and sometimes it'll be really clear, and other times it'll be like, well, shit, we're going to have to go this way or that way. And don't take those lightly, but enjoy them, right? And you've got a great little friendship and crew, so don't do anything that'll jeopardize that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It means a lot.
Don't screw it up.
No pressure.
I'd love to come to a bar together, honestly, right after this.
That sounds good to me.
We can probably make something like that happen.
Yeah.
Is it like this? I was kidding.
Dude, it is a massive honor to be here in the presence of this, to even work with you guys and have the relationship that we do, and to know that you're such a cool, honest, great person. Thank you so much for
Yeah, thank
having
you.
us.
It really makes it like a solid closure knowing that you're such a good guy. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm one man, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes that do a ton
Yeah.
of work. And
There you go. You're
can't
being
thank
nice.
Yeah, you
about
did it again,
Dude,
dude.
stop it. Told you,
Yeah.
culture.
Well,
No, it's been an honor hosting you guys, and love what you do, and certainly going to look forward to watching your success and
Thank you.
this relationship
Yeah.
continue to blossom.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, cheers
Yeah,
to that.
yeah,
Woo.
cheers.
To the
Thanks
years
for
to
having
come.
us out here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.